Great. So, hi, it's Susie Walker here, and we are here for an end of year review, a joy injection of 1 hour where we're going to stroke all our neurotransmitters and try and sort of literally look about how we can kind of boost our mood, boost our immune system, and sort of look back on the year and learn some good lessons. It's been so grim out there recently with everything that's happening in the world. This is not about toxic positivity. It is acknowledging that it can be really dark out there, but it's about how can we focus on the light, and also how can we, a lot of the people on this call are writers, and we need to kind of, how do we continue to inspire ourselves? How do we do that? How do we keep going? So not only is it the world out there, but also our inner world that can tell us how kind of dreadful we are. So if our inner critic is in control of our head, rather than our inner coach. So it's basically looking about how we can sort of turn the dial up on the more positive emotions, and then kind of really notice what we need. So I have the kind of almost the excitement emotions, and then I also have the soothing emotions. And it's noticing, oh, where can I go now? So I just want to explore the kind of menu of positive psychology. So it's when I was at Psychologies magazine, I ran something called the Happiness Clubs. We had them globally, we had thousands all over the world. And from that, I learned so much about how you can boost your mood. 2023 has been, I don't know about you, but I was doing the questions yesterday around, how has the year been for me? I don't know if everyone's looked at the questions that I sent out. We're going to do some of those questions today, just to kind of look about, how's it been for you, 2023? And Heartleap, my kind of my piece about Heartleap is, I've been a coach for many, many years. I qualified in 2000. And for me, a lot of it has been, all about kind of setting goals and visions and stuff. But often the most successful strategy I've ever created was just follow my Heartleap. And what I mean by that is, you're not quite sure why, but it's like, yeah, that's really good. It's really exciting. And when you start following that path, kind of magic starts to happen. For example, I last Christmas I started a tiny little vintage store in a vintage shop, and that's brought me so much pleasure and fun, and I've met so many interesting people through that. And it doesn't kind of fit with anything that I've ever done before. I've never done retail. I've not really done any vintagey things before, but I'm just really, really loving it. So it's about Heartleap is something that makes your heart kind of lift, that you can't maybe explain it, but I believe that if we can identify that and notice it when it's happening, you've got to turn all your focus on that emotion and go, what is that? Why am I feeling like that? And it may be it's because you're living your values. That's my theory. That's my theory of when we have that Heartleap, it means we are living and aligned with our values. And sometimes life can feel like, nah, yeah, it's all right, yeah, it's okay. And then there's the Heartleap where everything kind of jumps up. So it's like, how can we go from focusing onto the Heartleap? So let's just write down, it can be difficult, 3 Heartleap moments from 2023. So 3 things. So they're just moments that have made your heart leap, that you've really enjoyed, that were surprising. Just write those down. Who would like to share their heart leap moment that they wouldn't mind talking about? Anybody? Amber?
I've got 2 so far.
Yeah.
I was giving my boyfriend a treatment a few months ago for like a facial and some body work, and I could feel energetically the love that he had for me, the connection, and that was beautiful because it just I've written here, trusting and in the love and support of another. That really helped me when I could feel it in that deeper way, really connect on a deeper level. But I didn't have with him before, and I've never had with anyone. So that was just amazing. And then I've also put the connection and the support of this group as well, our writing group.
Yeah.
Quite often I'll come on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and I'll be with you guys, and I'll just be like, oh, this is just what I need. I just feel connection, support, my tribe, just all your faces and who you are and everything you bring to it. And that's what I got so far. I just need a third one, but that's what came to me.
Yeah. So what I'm again, my theory is that our heart leap moments of when we're aligned with our values. So for what I'm hearing there's a piece about connection. So when you're connecting to people that you love. So this is not for everyone. Connection is also one of my values, but it won't be for not everybody. So often introverts, it's not about external connection. But for you, I'm hearing connection. And there's something about, you said something about trust as well. So when I know what you mean. I had a lovely conversation with a friend this morning, and she was so wise and brilliant and wonderful. And I just could feel myself relax into her wisdom. I thought, I can trust this person. She's got my back. This is really great. So it's that, isn't it? So I heard you say it's trust and connection, which is really amazing. So wonderful. I saw Emma. Thank you, Amber. Emma, you were going to say something as well. What were you about your heart leap moments?
So the one that I'm going to choose out of the three really is my daughter getting her GCSE results, and it's because she's not a traditional learner, so she didn't get, she wasn't in the sort of going to get these kind of grades thing. It was just about making sure she could get to where she wanted to be next, which is going into creative, going into media makeup, theatrical special effects in college. So as somebody who's gone through the school system that doesn't fit her for so many years, to see her get results that enabled her to take the next step, and she did amazingly. I mean, she did more than she thought she would, but it was just so incredible to watch a young woman kind of come into her own and work so hard and achieve something that she knew had such a value that wasn't aligned with what society says is a value, in that, it wasn't like the top mark, but it was a validation of all the effort and showing that you can find your way, if that makes sense. So it was a really, really beautiful moment of what defines success, and just looking at somebody have a level of maturity beyond their years.
Yeah, so that's kind of it feels like that's pride, it's inspiration, it's so you're inspired by your own daughter.
Massively.
And also there's something called positive empathy that I read about the other day. Is like, we can feel joy for ourselves, but we can also become something called joy spotters. So when we acknowledge and see other people who are focusing on joy, that they are having joy. So as well, it's being witnesses to other people's joy. So I can imagine that being witnessing to your daughter's joy about getting on the path, that is something out of this world. But,
it was really special. And I mean, I am very much a traditional learner, so I've never experienced the challenges that she experiences in that way. So it's been such an education for me, and to see the whole kind of just the way the world is changing. I mean, there's lots of awful things going on, clearly, but also there's a lot more acceptance of divergence in that way. So
so, and again, it's like just like you said, there's a lot of awful things, but there's also a lot of amazing new ways, new pathways, support, so much, now neurodiversity, we know what that is, and it's like, yes, and we can help you, and there are ways. I mean, I know it's not completely bulletproof yet, but we're getting there with it. It's, you know, it's a pathway for us all. So that, you know, it is focusing on how that can help. So in terms of, you talked about, I think this is something about inspiration. So I just want to ask that question, is what's really inspired you this year? Who or what has really, really inspired you this year? And try and be really specific, not vague, but think about a moment of when you felt really inspired by something, where you thought, okay, this is great. Can you remember where you were, what it smelled like, what it felt like, what you heard? Just write anything, to one or two things that have inspired you. Who would like to share inspiration? So for me, when it was actually one of our group, Caroline Ferguson, who I just think is an amazing coach. And every time she comes on and she speaks in our group, I'm like, oh, it's great. But when she did the masterclass for us on today is not the day I break a promise to myself, and that has stayed with me all year. And I just find it really, really inspirational. Been reading some Glennon Doyle, and there was a quote from Glennon Doyle: "Be messy, complicated, afraid, and still show up anyway." And I love that idea of, I think I spent many years trying to be perfect, and then I'd turn up. But now it's much more about just turning up authentically myself, and then hopefully that people will forgive me for the mistakes I make, and just do my best. And I'll do that. And that's definitely for me the inner coach being in control rather than the inner critic. So for me that's quite big. So what about anybody else?
Hi. Hi, this is my first time, so I'm a newbie. Hello.
Hi Jan, lovely to meet you. Hello.
Thank you. So I'm a little bit nervous, but this really inspired me, and I haven't stopped talking about it. It was from a online magazine called Positive News.
Oh yeah, weirdly, yes.
I love it. I just absolutely love it. And it's just such a blinding, amazing, full of light quote, and it's about a t-shirt, and you've probably read it, Susie, you've probably read it. Maybe. But it says, "I'm from the future, we made it." And I just love it, because it was all about it was talking about this t-shirt that this person had seen in the Black Lives Matters, and I just thought, how forward thinking is that t-shirt to me represents our future possibilities. You know, it's that, what you said before about the joy spotters. It's like, it isn't over yet. We've got work to do. We've got to dig in, but it's not over, and we're gonna make it. And for me, that lights me up.
Yeah, well, I think also that it's brilliant, Jan, and welcome to the group. Hooray!
Hello.
It's so nice to have you here. So for me, that's about hope. You know, that emotion is so, I don't know if anybody on the call also feels, you know, moments of despair sometimes, you know, when some things happen, or you read something, or you watch something, and it makes you feel despairing. So it's like, almost what we want is a place where we can, whether it's a slogan, a podcast, something that feels that we can have hope. So Absolutely. The next question to us all is, what are the resources that make you feel hopeful? So what do you listen to? What do you watch? I mean, I'm because I'm a journalist, I'm slightly obsessed by where we get our news from. And I'm really struggling to know where to get my news from at the moment, because everything seems so biased and negative. And Positive News, Jan, I love, and that's amazing, because it's very constructive journalism. of, okay, this is happening. So it's not acknowledging that it's not happening, but okay, these are 25 different solutions that people are doing in the world, and how can we focus on those, or what can we do differently? So one, rather than, because of the news feeds and our negative bias, we can just get stuck watching, the negative headlines coming up over and over again. And because of my job, often I'm reading different newspapers online just to what's going on and what are the themes, and I'm going to pitch something, so what can I hook it onto? But it's so depressing sometimes. So I have to be really careful about that, because otherwise I can feel myself getting swept away on this kind of river of despair and the world's going to hell in a handcart. So I have to be very conscious about where to find hope. So where do you lot find hope? Where do you go? Where are your hopeful resources when you feel despair? I mean, I'm talking more about, well, it can be personal despair as well, but where do you go to stroke or start pumping up your hope?
For me, Susie, it's just podcasts all the way.
Yeah.
I listen to them every single day out on the dog walk. I know which ones are going to really kind of boost me up. So like at the start of the week when I need a bit of energy, it's usually Mel Robbins, because she just kicks ass on a Monday. And then places like, Postcards from Midlife. I love that, because that is so positive for like, midlife women and everything that we go through there. And then probably a personal one, in the kind of work I've been doing this year, looking at the whole kind of ADHD side of things. There is a couple of podcasts that are really helpful and really, really positive. It's not focused on the negative side of ADHD at all. So one is ADHD for Smart Ass Women, which I find really, really good. She's American and she's really positive, but she interviews loads of people, and it's all about finding those unique kernels that you've got inside you and just kind of celebrating that. So the podcasts all the way for me. And also Substack, since we've all got involved on Substack, there's just such great writers out there that are all kind of hopeful and talking about good things. So yeah, those are my two.
That's brilliant. I would add also the Hay House app. I'm a massive fan of Hay House, Louise Hay, and just even listening to her really old book, You Can Heal Your Life, which came out in the 80s, and I was just listening to that the other day. Amazing. Insight Timer for me is like an app full of meditations. And when I can't sleep at night, so sometimes what happens to me is I wake up in the middle of the night and I worry. So it's like, and that can be, I'm sure everyone has had that experience. And so it's like, so I just have my little headphones, put them in, and then listen to all of these really positive, all sorts of things, from your inner child to yoga nidra to all sorts of things that kind of make you, and I mean within 20 minutes I'm asleep.
That's really weird, because somebody asked on our WOW group this week about meditation. Everybody's been on about the Insight Timer one and raving about it, so it's weird that you mentioned that as well.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say, sorry, I didn't jump in on anyone, did I?
No, go, Annie. That's great.
Bad habit, sorry. Two things. One is my favourite ever, Sarah Blondin. Does anyone know Sarah Blondin? Oh my God, she's my, I've never.
The name rings a bell.
Yeah, she's on Insight Timer, SARAH Blondin. And there's something, it's very unusual. It's more like, it's meditation, but it's poetry. It started off as her journals when she went into recovery from her drug addiction years ago, and just journaling to herself. And then it's become just like phenomenal meditations, and phenomenal. And the other person that I absolutely love, and I always go to his quotes when I feel a bit flat, and that's Stephen Pressfield. I love Stephen Pressfield so much, because he's straight, direct, no bullshit, straight to the point, no fluffy stuff, just raw, unfiltered. And he's really, really been in the trenches. And as a writer and someone that really knows rejection terribly well, I just like that really raw stuff, that really real stuff.
Yeah. And again, it's about, because sometimes I can get irritated by kind of the kind of positivity, you know, the Instagram. I mean, when we're looking, I don't know if everyone is on Instagram, but you know, we can talk a lot about the toxic positivity, and also about being on social media and how destructive it can be. Actually, I have found being able to go on Instagram to be, well, I'll talk about this in a moment, so it's from hope to comfort. So I mean, literally watching long Instagram reels. So when I'm literally a little bit frazzled and I'm feeling really, you know, I can't kind of get comfortable in myself, I don't want to meditate, I feel kind of cold and scared and all of those things that maybe some of you might feel sometimes. Being able to go to like I'm just gonna, you know, and it's just lovely, like cute soft dogs, whatever. And then so I curate my Instagram is just the most beautiful kind of combination of beautiful wise women saying wise things and fluffy dogs. So again, it's like, how can we use our social media to just soothe ourselves? I think, again, this is something I know it's ridiculous at the age of 55, but that I'm learning how to self-soothe in a healthy way. You know, in my early 20s and 30s, it was cigarettes and alcohol and carrying on. But now it's like I need to do it in food. And now it's like, how do we self-soothe when nothing kind of quite reach you, you know, when you feel so out of your own skin and you just need to calm your nervous system down and soothe yourself. So me, it's I've got an electric blanket, switch my electric blanket on, it's warmth, blanket on top, dog beside me, and just scroll. And then all of a sudden, half an hour later, I'm able to meditate, or I'm able to do that. So there's a piece about self-soothing as well in this. So there's times when, you know, in the year ahead in 2024, that you may feel we need these resources that we can turn to. Be like, okay, I just need a, you know, electric blanket moment, but whatever. So what are your ways of self-soothing? What are the ways that you can do this when it all gets a bit too overwhelming?
I think for me, one of the places, I think it covers all of those, is, it's funny because we've got our online ones and then our internal inside us ones. But mine is the lake that I swim at, and it's so important no matter what state my health is in. And even if I'm really unwell, my husband will drive me down there just so I can get and be there and kind of get in the water. And it's about the connection with nature for sure, and how that kind of lifts you in a way, in a different way. And also the people in the community. And sometimes when I go there, I just need to be on my own, and that's fine, and people can sense that. And sometimes you get lifted by listening to other people's stories and sharing or whatever. So I think I have a go-to place that's an actual physical, really critical part of my well-being for self-soothing and self-calibrating.
Yeah. So
one of the things that I've felt so aware of in the last year is, you know, definitely doing IVF on my own. I've had to really, you know, it's a masterclass in so much, you know, definitely in self-care. And I think it's really easy when you think of self-soothing to think of like almost like one size fits all things. And I've started with a bit of a more multi-stage process to be like, okay, how am I? Like, what's going on, to understand what I need. And so I've made myself a really extensive list of like self-soothing, and got one pile which is like, what activities, places and people help me power up, what activities, places and people help me power down, you know, almost like natural uppers and downers. And then what activities, places and people help me connect and feel like supported and loved. And almost thinking about those different piles has been so much more helpful, because then the first step is like, have I been on my own a lot? You know, am I feeling a bit flat? Am I feeling a bit low? Or, you know, have things been really busy or stressful? Then the solution to how you soothe is different. And I think in the UK almost, I think there's almost this thing of like, oh, right, when I don't feel good, I do this, without almost having that stage first of being like, well, how am I? What's going on? To understand actually which of these different piles, of which, you know, we could all sit down and figure out whatever need states we have. I think that's so great. But I've found that really important, and building on that list has been so great. And whenever I do workshops on it, you know, I take my own list and add to it, because, you know, you can really get so creative with it. Like even thinking of, I don't know, this time of year, it's so joyless with the weather. And I've realized that one of the things that really lifts me is if I put wellies on and take my see-through umbrella, I feel like a little kid splashing through puddles, you know? And I think almost the more granular you get with like little things, everyday things, you know, and but definitely thinking about those different need states for me has been really key.
That's amazing. I mean, what I'm hearing you say is, first of all, it's about acknowledging how you feel. So sometimes, well, I don't know about anybody else, sometimes I can be so busy that I'm not even aware of where I'm at, do you know what I mean? But I know I'm out of sorts, but I can't quite. So it's kind of being able to stop and go, okay, what is going on? And I love what you said. So I have excitement or self-soothing, but I like power up and power down. Great. So it's like, do I need to power up or do I need to power down? So it's acknowledging that what you might be feeling, and then thinking, okay, what do I want to power up with, or what do I want to power down with? And then having a list of resources that work for you. That's genius. It's great.
Because we all know it. I mean, even from a neuroscience perspective, when we don't feel well, we are literally just not equipped to have good ideas for ourselves. So you're more likely to choose something that's not helpful. And certainly with IVF and all the wild hormones, I've been so ill-equipped to have ideas at times. And so almost having that cheat sheet has, yeah, it's really helped.
Yeah, and I think, you know, this idea of having a cheat sheet going into 2024 is to be more conscious about this, you know, to be very conscious about what we need, how we're feeling, what we need, and how to give us what we need, and to be able to look after ourselves. I love the word that you used there, granular, on a granular level, that it's very, so for me, I've got certain kind of mugs. There's certain mugs that I'm using, so that one's got like a gold handle, and that, you know, colored glasses, and so there's also sort of the implements that I'm using that are helping. So it's a kind of almost I think it's called, there's a name for it, like an anchor. I think in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, it's like you anchor. Okay, this is my soothing mug. This is my power up mug, you know what I mean, for my coffee in the morning or whatever it is, that you're getting these things, but on a granular level, that it's on your throughout your day. It's from, you know, from the way you get up, from the smells that you use in the shower, to the plate that you have your lunch on, to the roots. So I've got the dog. So for me, the routes that I take, I noticed that I was taking the same awful, I live in the most amazing place. What am I doing? So this weekend I was going out onto the beaches and I was taking pictures of the dawn. It was amazing. I'm like, what am I doing? Why have I been trudging around the old car park? I mean, what was I doing? And it's that thing of not consciously creating things for ourselves. So for 2024, it's really kind of designing a day, a week, a month, and it will change. It will change as we go along. But it's like looking at consciously, how do we do that? Eve, hello. Eve, hello, welcome. It's lovely. So this is the lovely Eve, who did a fantastic masterclass on self-care. So I'm so pleased you're here, and we're just talking about self-care, Eve. So it's absolutely brilliant. You're brilliant timing. So how would you, so I'm going to just pick on you if you don't mind. So in terms of us creating, we're trying to create consciously in 2024 routines to power up and to power down, and to look after our own needs, whatever they may be. Any kind of golden tips? I know that you covered this in your masterclass, but anything that you'd like to share?
It's something I'm working with myself every day as well. That's why it's my specialism. I need it so much myself. I think one thing that really helps me is I have it all marked into my diary. I have floss my teeth in my diary. I tap daily. I have EFT in my diary. I have like kind of all these things, desk diary in my phone. I have like, have you stopped work at 9 p.m? Are you ready for bed yet at 11 p.m? Yoga Nidra at 1:30 p.m. So it's not like a didactic thing. I have to do it in a friendly, questioning way for myself, but it builds it all in, and it means I don't have to try and remember. Like the yoga and meditation first thing, they're automatic, but once I get hooked into work or something else, I can forget quite easily to have breakfast or something like that. So I keep it very, very basic with lots of reminders. But most of all, keep checking in with yourself and asking yourself, what do you need most in any given moment? And have that compassion, have that you're worthy of whatever it is you need most. And if you can't offer it to yourself in that moment, then maybe that night or the next day or something, but you're attending to that need.
I think this idea of, so we were just sort of talking earlier, Eve, about the kind of acknowledging what we need, and asking ourselves, so whether you have a kind of an alarm going off, I for years, I'm a codependent in recovery. I've been focused on everybody else's needs rather than my own. And it's for the first time in my life, my son's gone off to university, that I'm actually focusing on what I need. So, but I don't even know what it means. Like, what do you mean? What do I need? I don't know.
So also not just what you need, what do you want?
Yeah.
Let yourself want.
Can you say a bit more about that? Because I think
especially like another codependent in recovery, it's so easy to think you have to be really needing something before you can begin to allow yourself to declare yourself worthy enough of it. Whereas the more it's like, oh, I just feel like that, or that might be nice, or just like, again, working with the nervous system, moving towards what feels good, moving away from what doesn't. We're wired to thrive when we feel good.
Yeah. And in terms of thank you, Eve. There's so many writers on, Jana. I'm not sure if you're a writer or not, but there's a lot of writers on this call. And for us, I think it definitely easier when we feel good, when we are resourced to actually write. So, isn't it?
Yeah. It's ventral vagal wellness. We're wired to thrive, to be creative, when we're safe, when we're welcome, when we're loved. You're talking in your Heartleap group about the believing eyes, the Julia Cameron type model of a reader who's going to help you be more rather than who's going to shut you down with criticism. It's all part of the same thing, the safety.
I mean, I think so that piece about safety. So we were talking earlier, Eve, about powering up and powering down. So sometimes when we feel unsafe, so often in this group and in self-development, we are taking risks all the time. We are, and so it can feel really, really scary. And I mean, from Louise Hay to Susan Jeffers, the oldies that have been with since the beginning. And Glennon Doyle, who I was quoting there, for me, it's always the secret for me is always be brave. But with courage comes the kind of fear and feeling, oh, I'm out of my comfort zone. And, I've had such a year of moving house and splitting up with boyfriends. And I'm not going to know year, but it's just the whole bloody year has been like always out of my comfort zone. It's like, and it's really, and so Eve, about safety.
And the window of tolerance. Dan Siegel, neuro scientist, he is an amazing, I think, I've forgotten all the terminology, neurobiologist, but he created a model called the window of tolerance, which is super simple, because you think about the old-fashioned sash windows and you think about Susan Jeffers, feel the fear, do it anyway. I'm going to open that window, slam, crash, I'm never going near that window again. if you open it very, very gradually, so you're working with your nervous system again, you're not overdoing anything, you're expanding your comfort zone, you're going to be able to expand it slowly, slowly, slowly over time, rather than trying to do too much. It slams shut, it potentially shatters, or you scare yourself, get a hop, and don't try it again. So the more gentle you can make anything, the better. You've had a huge year. Recognizing that, powering down. Yeah.
Yes. But yes, absolutely. Recognizing that idea of creating safety and self-soothing, and placing that space for ourselves where we can retreat to. And again, it's acknowledging that, because sometimes if you're pushing forward, sometimes, you know, when you're in survival mode, you can be like, just keep going, don't look, just keep going forward, because you're scared that if you look behind you, you're going to collapse in the heat.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's definitely about creating that safety. So Eve, you just said something there about moving away. So my next question is, in 2023, what do you want to move away from? What do you want to let go of? So that's no longer in our lives for 2024. And often that is a simplistic question, because it doesn't happen exactly that, but it's consciously. Linda, I can see your hand up.
Yes, the perfectionism, the lining up all of the jobs that need doing before I have the metaphorical cream cake, you know, to have it all now, to do it all now, instead of getting through the chores, getting through the jobs. And by the time I come round to the thing that I really wanted to do, I'm either too tired or there's another long list. But it's to put things into perspective, is that the ironing will be there every single week, and so will the vacuuming, and so will the dusting. It doesn't matter how much you dust it, that actually never ever goes away, it just sneaks back. But you know, my imagination, that spontaneity, that wonderful phrase that comes into my head, that is not going to come back in tomorrow. And it's to have these things now. And I suppose in this year, I've been creating space, and it's not so much physical space, but space by getting some of the jobs done. I've still got quite a few jobs to do, but when I look back, and it relates to the other questions already, when I look back to see what I have already achieved, then I deserve to give myself a really good pat on the back, because a lot of these things have happened. And one of the things that I wanted to say in question 1 was learning to play the piano. I started to learn to play the piano just before lockdown. So I just started with the piano, then there's lockdown, then there's a few lessons, there's another lockdown, then there was COVID, then my piano teacher got COVID. And he's always saying to me, you must remember that you had such a jagged start to learning to play the piano. And now I'm actually playing proper music, both hands, different hands, up and down the keyboard, this hand and that hand. And it's actually looking at what I'm doing now compared to those very first lessons. So it's letting go of all of the shoulds and musts and everything else. And I've got a little list here from, I think it's something Jan said, and certainly something from what Eve said, and somebody else that was saying design the day, week, month. I think that's you, Susie. This is where I am already going. So it's letting go of all of the shoulds and musts and all of the stuff that gets in my way. And I've got 5 weeks to plan moving into 2024 seamlessly.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think so that they're kind of lit. I think we'll all have life admin lists, you know, and all of those things will always, you know, dusting and the cleaning. Find my best efforts but they always still need to be done. But it's like creating the other list of the other stuff in 2024.
Yeah.
The things that we're going to create. One of my highlights for this year was doing a pottery class. I was rubbish, but it was amazing. The creativity, there was this kind of almost like a Zen master. He was Korean and he was just amazing. It was so amazing. And I'm like, oh my God, literally everything was firing. And I was like, this is amazing. So it's like, how do I do more of that? How do I paint more? How do I not just write more? How do I, you know, the other day when we had an Artist Way class, I was literally the happiest ever in the whole wide world, because it was like inspiring, it was connected, it was deep, it was just amazing. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is my life. And that, so it's like, how do we build? So just like we've got to clean and brush our teeth and do the flossing of our teeth, how do we build all the good stuff in? So that's my question. So just spend 1 minute writing down what are those things. So for me, you know, having the writing group, more of that somehow. So once the Artist Way is finished, I want to, you know, because for me to talk to creative people at a deep level and to create together and to support each other, it's just like heaven to me. You know, doing one creative class a week, doing, you know, pottery or painting or whatever, being a beginner and no pressure, that would be amazing. You know, going to the big beaches, the Bamburgh beaches, rather than going around the car park. What do you know what I mean? Really planning, you know, so on a weekly, daily, monthly basis. These are the things, these are on my go-to list. So for you, what does that look like? Anybody would like to share what's going to be on their list for 2024 to build that in?
I think being clear on your priorities, like having your priorities in order so that you can say yes to those and try and learn to say no to other things. And I've put as well, being clear on who I am and what I'm here for. That helps me build all the good stuff in. Like this morning, I was just reflecting in the kitchen again, like about the writing classes. I am a writer and I prioritize my writing. Tuesday and Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Sunday, I share my Warrior Weekly every single Sunday. I'm writing my book, I'm writing my socials posts, which I absolutely love creating content for. I am a writer and that features heavily in my week, but I do feel that getting clear on who we are and what we're here for and what our priorities are a really important part of that.
But also, as you're saying it again, my theory is when we align with our values, so the things that, you know, so connection, creativity, and I think we find each other almost like we resonate. So they're two of my highest values: connection, creativity, and fun. So, you know, so we find each other and then we get together and it's like, and it's just amazing. You know what I mean? Like we're going to do the festival in Alnwick and stuff. And again, it's all of those things and everyone gets really excited because we're also having fun and it's brilliant. So being clear about who you are and what your priorities are, but also what your values are. So if you haven't done your kind of discovered what your values are, that's definitely a thing to try. You know, I think there's values finders, or I mean, how I do my values is a very kind of DIY version, but it's like, look in the last year, look at your heartbeat moments, look at, I call them the golden glow, the things that give you a golden glow. And then you look at it and it can be being in nature, connected to nature, fun, laughter, whatever it is. And then out of those, all of those things, you'll notice there is a theme that goes through all of them. And like for me, creativity is, as soon as I'm creative in any way, I just feel like my hair's standing on end. So it's one of my highest values. It's a thing that saves me again and again. I was thinking it's my highest value. So for you, what is your highest value? What's the one thing that, you know, when I was, oh my God, you know, split with my boyfriend, having to live in the same house with him, and I was so miserable, and I just thought, I can't bear this, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do? And I'm like, I'll go to a book launch in the bookshop, and that's how the festival started. So I went down to the book launch on a really disgusting, windy, nasty night, and met this amazing group of people who said, oh, come to the pub next door, and I got sat next to the mayor and all of those things. So it's like in your worst moments, it's like, oh God, no. And then again, I'm not saying poor me, we've all we have those moments, but I was really journaling about that and thinking, yeah. And when you reach out and go towards, so instead of staying in these kind of, oh, this is really rubbish, go towards the things that light you up, that power you up. It's really good. So anybody want to share anything about that before we move on?
I was just going to say, I mean, I've just put it on the chat, but in terms of like building that stuff into your life for the year, I really purposeful about it. I always write kind of a list of 24 for 24 or 23 for 23, and you know, have a lot of fun with it. And it's really interesting if you just check in the year and go back to it and see how many you've done, and then think, oh, I said I'd do that, why haven't I done that yet? It just reminds you, do you know what I mean? So
I think that's a great idea. I love that. So we're going to write 24 things, you know, to do.
Whatever you want to do, it's do, be, feel, it's whatever really. It doesn't have, you know, it can be the smallest thing. So, you know, on one of mine on there was because I'd just moved. It was like, you know, make sure I go for a coffee with my new neighbour Douglas. That was on there. Do you know what I mean? So it can be really small things, really big things. It doesn't matter. It's just that kind of rich tapestry, isn't it? And then I do another thing to check against that. And this is kind of from psychologies, actually, partly, when I used to read it, but, you know, kind of the heart, body, mind, soul type things. So I go through that list and I put down what need that is fulfilling, each one. So I kind of almost second check it by making sure that I'm covering heart, body, mind, soul evenly. Or I might not need to focus on one element of it because it's kind of already catered for, if you see what I mean. But it's a really good way of kind of sense checking that you're trying to cover all areas. And I do it instinctively because some of them can cover quite like 3 of those things, but I always go with my first instinct on what that is covering, if you know what I mean, so that you can't cheat.
It's a great, so let's just do that now. So everyone draw a circle. And then let's do you did do 6 segments. 1, 3, 4, 5, oh no, 8 segments, sorry. 8 segments. And so you're, you know, so there might be work, it may be body, soul, mind, like mental health, what else is there? Love, and that can be friends or romance, what else?
Like your environment I often put in there, so like, you know, like home or
home,
where you're placing yourself.
What else do you want to put on there?
Fun.
Go on, who said that?
Emma. So fun, just something about
fun. Yeah, great. And adventure for me. Okay, so just, and then the Artist Way exercise is score yourself. So if can you see that the nought is in the middle and then outside is the 10, and she sort of says, so you draw a kind of line, so what's work, so like it might be 7 out of 10 for me, body, whatever, mind, and then you can see your spider diagram. And the idea is that over the course of 2024 that we take ourselves from, there may be something that's a 2, like my romantic life. Not going well, can I just say? 2 out, so let's say it's a 2 out of 10. So how do I get from 2 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10? How do I do that? And how can I control that? And for fun, what does that mean? So what are the incremental steps to take you from a 4 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10? So what do you need, you know, for example, do you need to plan a gig or a pottery lesson or seeing the girls or a weekend away or for your body? But what we don't want to make it though is another list of shoulds of, oh my God, you know, I've got to do this. And again, it's a document to inspire you. So when you're feeling, my thing is always, what am I doing again? I can't remember. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing again. And then it's just having the resources and the lists and the framework. Oh yeah, it's because I need to power up or I need to power down. and to have these ways of doing that. But I love the idea. So you could create, it's called the Wheel of Life. You can get that all over. We used to have it at Psychologies, and it used to be, you know, do your own segments. It could be 8, it could be 10, it could be 16, however you want to do it, and just give yourself a score, and then give yourself the things that you need to sort of, you know, improve and increase, turn the dial up on. You know, for mine, for example, it's you know, how can we look after our mental health? What are the, you know, I know we talk about it all the time, but gratitude, you know, so I've got one of those gratitude apps on my phone, and I'm supposed to do it every day, but I probably do it about every week. But it really helps me focus on all the things that I'm well, all of those, you know, all of the things that we can be grateful for. So that's really good. But I love the idea, Juliet, of the 24 things to do. And of course, next year is a leap year. It's going to be a leap year. Yoo-hoo! So we're going to do I've decided I'm going to do a heart leap program. So just for all of us, just the same as, you know, like we do now, but just do a monthly workshop like this, where we just do something once a month, where we might have special guests, but also just to talk amongst us and say, because there's so much resource that we have. I think, you know, getting together as a really inspiring group with great resources is also fantastic. You know, that it's, for me, it's about connecting with each other, and from that we look at each other's Substacks, and we gain inspiration, and you hear about somebody else, and we get to know each other. Because I think for many of us who perhaps have worked in an office before, you know, how you get, you know, being in Alnwick, you know, I'm new to the town. It's like, how do you get to know people? And you get to know people over time, don't you? By spending time with them, by, you know, doing something with them. So this group is a way, you know, of us getting to know each other over time, and sharing the joy. And for me, it's part of the thing about creating connection for us all, which is really, really great. I want to share some inspirational quotes. So has anybody got a inspirational quote that they would like to share, and what it means for you? So mine that I've chosen, there's two I've got, is one from one of our own members, which is Caroline Ferguson. Today is not the day I break a promise to myself. That really meant a lot to me. And it's when I really struggle, perhaps with I'm still on this 100 days, I'm nearly there, 100-day meditation challenge. And that is, I think about that quote when I'm really tired and I don't want to do it.
Can you say it again, Susie?
Today is not the day I break my promise to myself. I've written a blog post. Caroline did a whole, if you look on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, there is her brilliant thing that she's done on that. So for me, that was that one. The other one was, I said it earlier, was the Glennon Doyle quote, which is, be messy, complicated and afraid, and show up anyways. So for me, you know, it's giving myself permission to be all of who I am. To be, and Louise, who talks a lot about being messy in an artistic way, but also I think for me, like, also just generally don't have to clean up, but but also emotionally, that it's not from A to B, it's from A to Z to B. So those are two quotes that remind me it's okay. It's okay to be messy and brilliant at the same time, or messy and awful. And I can accept all parts of myself. So in 2024, you know, it's aspiring to, you know, to be my best self, but knowing that might not always happen. So anybody else got some quotes that they'd like to share that have helped you this year, that you know, might, and if not, let's find some.
Go on.
Go on, Annie, go on.
Oh, thank you. I loved someone I've known for years and years, who I just adore, Alice Hart Davis. I don't know if you know her.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And she put a quote in the Daily Mail a few months ago with her age, saying, "I refuse to age gracefully," which absolutely cracked me up. And I said to her, "Oh my God, woman after my own heart." just something about being a bit cheeky and getting older and not fitting into the boxes and not doing as one should. Or I love that sort of non-conformist without being aggressive. So yeah, I actually too. I'm not gonna. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone said to me the other day, Susie, you're such a mystery. I'm like, what do you mean? She says, well, you just don't do the things that everybody else does. And I'm like, I didn't know what they meant, but I suppose I haven't got the kind of conventional life. And I suppose when you come to Annick, maybe I stand out a bit. But I thought, good. I'm a mystery. Finally, I'm a mystery. That's good. So let's do that. Let's do that, Annie. Let's age disgracefully. It's good. Anybody else? Who else?
Yeah, I've got two. So one is no surprise, Liz Gilbert. But I use this all the time. So the courage to go on the hunt in the first place, that's what separates a mundane existence from an enchanted one. The often surprising results of that hunt is what I call big magic. And I use that all the time in terms of like curiosity and creativity. That's my go-to quote.
Can you say it again? Say it again.
Yeah, so the courage to go on the hunt in the first place, that's what separates a mundane existence from an enchanted one. And the often surprising results of that hunt is what I call big magic. That's her talking, but yeah. So that one, and then a more kind of personal one that's really stuck in my head. So the lovely neighbour that I mentioned before was 93, and I only had a year with him. He sadly passed away about 6 weeks ago, but he was the most inspiring guy. He walked his dog 3 hours a day. He was up ladders. He was so creative, painted watercolours. He was painting his Christmas card the week before he died. Real gorgeous character, really well known in the whole village. His funeral was a massive turnout. There's like 200 people there. And he was a painter, decorator in the local area. And they said his motto was, he was a real perfectionist, and his motto was always strive for the highest. And I just thought that's a really nice, simple one, isn't it? To just like, you know, it's very easy to just kind of play on a level playing field, isn't it? And get kind of stuck in that rut of familiar and not out your comfort zone. So yeah, just that strive for the highest one, I think I'll always remember, because he definitely was a perfectionist. He was out in his garden all the time, chopping roses and doing all sorts. So yeah, that's like just a more personal one.
Yeah, it's lovely. And also I think that it's like so be ambitious.
Yeah.
Like let's be ambitious. Let's just, you know, let's go for it. Let's go for the best-selling, Oscar-winning, blah blah blah. You know, go for it. Why not? Just go for the big one. We could do. Yeah, who knows what happens?
Never know, do you? And he was really encouraging on that level. So yeah, definitely.
That's a great quote. Somebody else was Emma, you're going to say something.
Yeah, this is one just very quickly that has really got me through, I suppose, the last couple of years. And it just reminds me of my dad, who passed away 9 years ago. But it's very much his sort of ethos. And it's, let's get it the right way around. Ego says, when everything falls into place, I will find my peace. Spirit says, when I find my peace, everything will fall into place. And it's Marianne Williamson, and I think that one all the time, because it's always just like the when I've done this, when I've done that, and again the societal constructs we live under of, you know, then I'll be happy, or then I'll feel this, then I'll feel that, and it's like no. And having had my life turned inside out and upside down in the last few years, it's like no, now I found my peace, and now things are happening.
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful place to end the call. I mean, we haven't really talked about that. I don't know, you know, if everyone is spiritual, but that kind of idea of finding a connection with something bigger than yourself, whatever that may be. And then, as you say, it's like, it's so tempting to go for all the shiny things. Oh, that's going to make me happy, and that's going to make me happy, from stuff to relationships to all of those things. So to really, so again, for me, it's definitely focusing on, you know, that place inside me that's connected to something bigger, which is through meditation or for nature or whatever it is for you. So I think that's really, for me, a beautiful reminder about actually what all of this process. And for me, creativity is such a spiritual process, because it's kind of connected. And that's probably why, Juliet, that we love Liz Gilbert as well, because, you know, this idea that it comes from the muse. You can see my muse behind. there. So that's a lovely place to end. Emma, thank you very much for giving us that quote. But I hope that has filled us. I mean, for me, I'm feeling really inspired because it's kind of been a bit practical as well. I loved the idea of powering up, powering down. I love that. I love this idea of 24. I'm going to do that as soon as I come off the call. I'm going to write down the kind of 24 things. Maybe I was going to say to you, I saw a planner the other day. Like the problem is I've got nowhere to stick it, but if you could find a planner where you can start planning all the things on one big sheet, that would be amazing. So you can see it all, you know, bits away, or the meditation you're going to do, and you can sort of color it all in. Or maybe you could color it all in and make it like a, you know, like a piece of art. Maybe that's the way to make your own planner. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me, everybody. I'm going to create a kind of a heart leap. So that was kind of an end of year review, but we're going to do the next one, which is going to be about looking forward. I'm not exactly sure what date because it falls on a funny, I think it's Christmas Day, our next one. So I'll figure out a date and then put that in. But I would like to do a kind of a heart leap year next year, where we set intentions, we do vision boards and have some fun with that. So going forward, but thank you for joining me tonight. It's been really fun. Lots of fun, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, Julian. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.